Welcome to Dissecting Horror. I'm your moderator, Josh Milliken from Dread Central, host of Chronic Horror, and I'm thrilled to have you all tuning into our live stream. You know, with the COVID-19 pandemic, things like festivals and conventions have all been put on hold. We're really doing our best to keep the experience alive in the form of these virtual Q&As. We were really lucky to... Oops. Sorry about that. Just have to mute my delayed feed. We're really excited to have teamed up with Impact 24 on a series of these virtual panels, shining a light on some aspects of horror movies and the movie making machinery that we don't usually see. Our last Dissecting Horror panel with Impact 24 was about film composers. And today I'm excited to have a panel of stunt people with us. Stunts are part of what makes our genre so exciting. Probably couldn't do it without these people. And they don't often get enough time in the spotlight. So we're really thrilled to have a group of very talented, prolific stunt workers on our panel tonight. I'm going to introduce them one at a time and show you guys a bit of their sizzle reel. So first, I'd like to welcome Hiro Koda. How are you, Hiro?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. You've worked on a ton of things, Power Rangers, you've directed Outcast, Stranger Things, you've been a stunt double on Blade 2, Mimic 2, stunt coordinator on The Collector, True Blood, Pulse. You've got a lot going on. So before we get into some questions, some Q&A, I wanted to show everyone your sizzle reel. We got that lined up and ready to go? That was fantastic. So just to clarify, Hiro, some of that was you and some of that was scenes that you choreographed or directed, correct?
All of that was just stuff that I've coordinated and directed. Not really. I don't think there was very many of me performing in there.
All right, all right. Well, I'll grill you a little more on that later.
Yeah.
Sitting right next to you, we've got Janelle Kerfman. I take it you guys know each other? You've met before tonight?
Yes, we're quarantining together.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, Janelle, you've done some incredible work as well. Your first gig was on Avatar. You're a trained gymnast and martial artist. You were Karen Gillian stunt double on Jumanji 1 and 2. Sandra Bullock stunt double on Bird Box. You did stunts yourself in Avengers Endgame, Venom, True Blood. You did motion capture for Resident Evil 6, the video game. Can't wait to talk to you in more detail, but first, let's check out your clip. Janelle, that was fantastic. Some of those were you?
All of them are me.
All of them were you. Really just amazing stuff seeing you get all thrown around like that. Fantastic, fantastic. My next guest is Jennifer Badger. Welcome, Jennifer.
Oh.
Jennifer, you recently played Julie Weber in Bad Boys for Life. You've been a stunt double for Angelina Jolie in Hackers, stunt double for Courtney Cox in Scream 2 and 3, stunt double in both Buffy and Angel TV series. And you've also appeared on The Vampire Diaries, the original, Sleepy Hollow, Children of the Corn 5. Welcome to Dissecting Horror.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a look at your sizzle reel. Jennifer, that was fantastic, truly mind blowing. Can't wait to grill you a little bit more about what you've got going on. And finally, all the way from Australia, joining us remotely, we've got Harry Danica. Oh my God, I knew I was going to butcher it. Oh man, Harry, how do you pronounce your last name?
Dakanalis.
One more time.
Dakanalis.
Dakanalis, Harry Dakanalis. Welcome to Dissecting Horror. You were the stunt coordinator on The Invisible Man, which just came out recently, a fantastic film. You did stunts on The Matrix and The Matrix Revolution, also on Mission Impossible 2, and you're a second unit director. Welcome to Dissecting Horror.
Thank you.
So you don't have a traditional sizzle reel, but we were able to pull a few of your clips from YouTube. Let's have a watch right now.
Better get back over here now.
Good stuff, Harry. Good stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get into the meat of this. Let's talk about what you guys have done and what you guys are doing. Since you were last, Harry, and since I mutilated your last name, let me start with you. Tell us about working on The Invisible Man.
It was good. It was, it's pretty tricky.
What about it was more difficult?
The action that sort of was required from the cast members was quite tricky, but we just didn't have enough time. Like usual problems, we didn't have enough time, so I had to sort of go into it a little unconventional and almost walk the cast members through their action scenes and not over rehearse it, not polish it too much. Otherwise, we'd end up with something that looks really choreographed. Elizabeth was pretty awesome, her timing. And the main thing was just getting her timings right. So our rehearsals for most of her action sequences, we basically spent maybe 3 days on each fight scene. And that was also filming it on motion control. So all the fight scenes on Invisible Man were actually shot on a high-speed robot that we own.
Oh wow!
So I was wearing 2 hats. I was the motion control tech, the supervisor, and the stunt coordinator as well. So
fantastic. Now, are you going to be doing any work on the upcoming Matrix movie, the Matrix 4 that was recently announced?
No, well, that's being filmed in America.
Okay, so you basically work exclusively in Australia.
No, I work all over the world, but it was, the last time we were on Matrix was a long time ago. I don't even think the original stunt coordinator's on Matrix 4. I don't, Glenn Boswell did the first one, and then Glenn Boswell with RA did the second and third, but I don't know who's on the 4th one. But nothing's, they were all filmed in Australia. That's why I ended up on them.
Which stunts did you do in The Matrix and Matrix Revolution that we might have seen you do?
Well, the funny story is I was actually a Lawrence Fishburne stunt double on the first Matrix.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and it was quite controversial at the time because I'm not African-American.
Really?
Yeah.
Giving you a hard time.
Apparently. But it was interesting because I turned up on set and I knew I was doubling him, and it was a little bit of talking about it, and everyone's stressing about it. And I went and jumped in a solarium for like a week every day, and I turned up on set and I was actually darker than him. told me I had to stay out of the sun. So
That's a pretty funny story.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I did a lot of the. I doubled him, and then I also played a couple of other characters. I played a policeman and a SWAT guy, and that's how we. In Australia, it's a little bit different. We pretty much play multiple roles because we have to. You know.
Sure.
Resources. We don't have as many stunt people here, so we sort of double up a lot of the times.
Well, fantastic. We're so thrilled you can join us. And remember to submit questions for Harry in the comments. We'll get back to you. Next, I want to talk to Jennifer, sort of work my way backwards. Jennifer, first of all, I just learned recently that you and Hiro have worked together.
Yeah, together 20 some odd years ago. Children of the Corn movie, and we crossed paths on Buffy, didn't we, Hiro?
We did many times, yeah.
Yeah, and then I've worked for Hiro several times and been thankful for that on the collection and on some of the TV that he does here in Atlanta and regionally. So yeah, it's nice when there's long-term friendships and you trust the people that you work with. That makes a huge difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. You guys are kind of a little gang, a little posse, yeah?
I don't know about that. But our community used to be very small. It's expanded greatly the last 5 to 10 years with different states opening up incentive packages and more people being brought into the industry. But prior to that, even if you didn't know everybody in the states in the movie industry for stunts, you at least knew their name. You knew who they were. So yeah, we're both not old, not saying that, just old school.
Hey, there you go. There you go. So, obviously our readers are huge fans of the Scream franchise, and you were the stunt double for Courtney Cox in Scream 2 and 3. Nev Campbell, just today, some outlets have reported that there might be talks about a Scream 5 in the works. Would you be involved in that production?
Probably not, unless it was producers I've worked with before or a coordinator position. As we were talking about with the Matrix series, as they reboot things and it's new people involved, it doesn't always necessitate keeping the same people on. Not that I wouldn't be thrilled to be part of it again, because I had a blast on those.
It's a fun franchise. What was it like working with Courtney Cox? I mean, did you spend a lot of time together? Did you try to learn her mannerisms?
Yeah, I mean, stunt doubles always do try and move like the actors. For me, I was on about an 800 calorie a day program because that was when she was doing Friends and she was unhealthily almost.
Yeah, pretty thin back then.
Yeah, so I worked with her on those movies and then another one called The Shrink Is In, and she was always decent to me. I'm not one to maybe schmooze as much as some people are. It's just not in my nature. I'm a little more antisocial, I guess. So on set, I'm always happy to be with them, but I'm not one that maybe goes out with my actors and, pursues a more personal relationship. So yeah, she was great to me, but it was always just very professional on set.
Fantastic, fantastic. And what's the craziest stunt you've ever performed?
Probably not anything that you or others would look at as being the craziest stunts, because the ones that are the biggest and the ugliest and the scariest tend to also be the better prepared. The ones that I've had a harder time with have been times when someone else has been in complete control of my safety, such as picking me up and throwing me off a bridge into a high fall, or being on the back of a motorcycle with someone who I maybe didn't trust or that was maybe under the influence. Those things have happened over the years, and those are, to me, the ones I would say no to now. But back in my younger days, I would just shut up and do the job, but would feel very unsafe because the people I was dependent on weren't someone that I thought I could trust for that.
That's very interesting. We just got a question come in for you specifically. What stunts did you do in Scream 2?
Oh, gosh. At the college in Scream 2, diving over the lab, there's like lab tables and the ghost is chasing Courtney around. So it was a lot of running around and being stabbed at. I was supposed to do Scream 1 and ended up being out of the country. So I wish I'd been able to do the whole run because it was so much fun. But Scream 3 was getting shot, falling down the hills. We got a couple tourist nominations for that, but Scream 2 was mostly just running and ducking and falling a lot.
Fantastic. Well, we love the way you do it. Thanks for being on Dissecting Horror. I'm going to move up to Janelle. Let's see. So you came into stunts after you were trained as a gymnast and a martial artist, correct?
Yeah. Well, after I was trained as a gymnast, I was a dancer when they found me to do some of the motion capture on Avatar. And so once I decided to change career paths from being professional dancer to martial or to stunt person, I started to try and take all the prettiness out of my movement and took some martial arts classes and really just tried to toughen up everything so I didn't look as graceful. So the martial arts part of it came after I decided to make that transition, which was about halfway through shooting Avatar, which I was on for 3 years.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that. I mean, that's a hell of a first gig, yeah?
Yeah, honestly, like all of us knew it was a big deal, but we didn't know how big of a deal it was. And for me, it being my first movie, it was just such a learning experience. I came on as part of Jim Cameron's motion capture troupe, and so we spent a year and a half on a motion capture stage, shooting all the performance capture. And it wasn't until a year and a half in that I was even on a live action set when we went to New Zealand to shoot the live action. So I had been working on this movie for a year and a half and had never even been on a live set. So it was pretty cool that first time of actually like, oh, okay. So even though I've been doing this for a year and a half, this is actually how movies get made, is this way, being on a practical set and you've got the cameras and everything else.
Yeah. It sounds really interesting. Are you going to be involved in any of the sequels coming up?
I am not. They're shooting those right now. I've just had other things going. I did the Jumanji sequel at the beginning of last year and have been coordinating Cobra Kai with Hito, and my career path has just gone a different way, and it's about a 5-year commitment from my friends that are on it right now, and I just didn't want to tie myself down for that long.
I feel you. We did get a question for you specifically, and it's similar to the one I just asked Jennifer. What is a stunt in Bird Box or Cobra Kai that looked easy but was actually technically challenging?
In Bird Box, actually, rowing that damn boat was so hard. I don't have a lot of experience in a boat, but we were on that river, and a lot of that was practical. And being in that boat and sometimes being in it with the kid actors, which was a lot of responsibility, and sometimes being in there with the stunt doubles, it was really hard. And as simple as it is to row a boat, you're dealing with, the flow of the water and the tides, and it was so challenging, and I had blisters on my hands and my arms were sore, and it was fun, but oh man, it was really hard.
Oh, fantastic. Let me talk a little bit to the guy next to you, Hiro. You, in addition to doing this work in stunts, you're a director, and I was really excited to see you've actually directed some episodes of Stranger Things.
I did last season. Season 3 was when I was brought on. I didn't do the first 2 seasons of Stranger Things, but I came on season 3, and then I second year directed from at the end of episode 2 through the end, 8.
Nice.
And are you involved in the upcoming season?
I am. We were in the middle of, we had started shooting this year before we got shut down. We had started out shooting out of the country, and then we came back. We were in Atlanta going strong, and middle of March, they shut us down.
Yeah. So David Harbour's been talking about how season 4 is going to be scarier than anything we've seen so far. Do you agree, or is he just hyping it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, season 4 is going to be epic. It's big, and it is definitely going to be scarier. I can't say anything of what we're going to be doing, but
sure.
The cool thing about this not the cool thing. I mean, the quarantine, like I'm able to prep so much script wise, not anything physical because I can't get my stunt team together. But as far as getting all my scripts prepped and stuff, like I haven't actually been able to do that on television before because we have this time now while we're not doing anything. So I'm in quarantine, I'm able to do all that. So that's kind of interesting. And I've been able to speak with the visual effects guys, and they're all doing the exact same thing. They're being able to previs things for visual effects and figuring out things that they need to do prior to, so they're not doing anything on the fly. So it's a huge help right now in this situation.
I bet. We got a question for you specifically about Stranger Things. It's about Hopper's big fight scene at the end of the season 3 finale. What was the hardest part about putting that crazy scene together?
God, that was such a massive scene. The scene was, the set was huge, first of all, and the Duffer Brothers wanted the fight to start inside the start of it inside the little mechanical room, and it had to take place inside, outside, down the stairs to the other side, down another set of stairs. It was just a very massive fight that took place. We had a certain amount of days to shoot it. I was directing second unit. I shot a lot of that whole sequence for the ending, but David was needed on both units, first and second unit. So there was a lot of time that we had to split between that, him and on first unit and me on second unit. So it was very difficult trying to, the most difficult part of it was like scheduling, because we could only shoot a certain amount of, like, we'd have a half a day to shoot with David. And so we'd shoot with him for a half a day. And then Andrei Ivanchenko was the Grigori. So he was there the whole time.
He was a scene stealer the whole
that guy
season.
Was amazing. Andre was awesome. But he was with us the whole time, and he had to do his stuff with David, and then David would leave to go to first unit, and then he would spend the rest of the day fighting with David's double. And I mean, he was a trooper. He went through the whole thing, but it was a massive scene, and I'm very happy with the way that it turned out. In dealing with like the whole laser gun that was there, none of that was there on the day while we were shooting, so it was all practically like lighting effects and things like that. So we had to like, go through things and pretend that this is here, that's there, and it was challenging. It was a lot of fun, but it was just a massive fight to shoot. And I think we shot that in about 4 days. It was a big fight.
Fantastic. Jennifer, I'm going to hop back to you for a second because we had a question come in for you specifically. First of all, I wanted to ask about Buffy specifically, but Buffy and Angel, are you surprised with how those two series have endured with the legions of followers and how it's remained relevant so many years after both shows have ended?
I am actually. I shouldn't be because it had such a strong fan base when we started, and that did carry over onto Angel too. I did about 5 seasons of Buffy, did the first season of Angel, and then moved here to the East Coast. We wanted to be closer to my family and have our family here on the East Coast. But I went to pull up some footage the other day, and I got to show my family, get some cool mom points that people had done reaction videos to scenes of some of the stunt fighting and characters I played on that. And to be able to show my son that was hilarious. So to see that some of those were people that were reviewing and doing reactions and putting out new YouTube videos just within this last year really surprised me. I know just from residuals, it's still showing in a lot of places and gets a lot of followers, but I just didn't realize that people were still coming new into those series, checking them out for the first time. So that
right. I recently just rewatched the whole thing from the beginning. It's like comfort food almost. What are some of your favorite memories from Buffy?
Oh man. I had so much fun on that. I wouldn't know where to start. I loved that Joss and David gave me a chance to do acting roles on that and on Angel, because I got into the business through acting, and it's been a love of mine. But I truly enjoy the physical aspects that go along with kind of the action scenes. So I guess some of my favorite days on there was like playing Vanessa, the blind assassin, where I could do acting and do the fighting and kind of be a part of making the whole character was really neat. But otherwise, Jeff Pruitt, who ran that the first many years, and his wife, Sophia Crawford, were so good to me. I was 18 turning 19 as I started that, and had been in the business doing stunts since I was 16. So, I mean, I was still very green, and they were so good to me. The whole show just made me feel very welcome. And the same when I transferred over to Angel. So I would say there's probably too many good memories to pick out just one or two.
Fantastic. Well, we might have to do a follow-up. I might have to get you on the phone for an in-depth interview or something, because we'd love to hear those stories, and people still love their Buffy.
Yeah, that was good.
Oh, yeah.
So, Harry, I'm going to pop back down to you because we got a question for you specifically about the Invisible Man. What challenges did you face coordinating stunts knowing that they would involve an invisible performer?
Basically, like I said earlier, we went into it quite prepared because we decided that we needed to film everything on a motion control robot. So we get repeatability. And then we had to layer all the shots. We had to basically do a shot with a guy with a green screen so that the reactions are all real. And then we'd have to take the guy with the green screen out, the green suit out, and then film the reactions alone with just the cast members. And then we would take the cast member out and then just put the green screen guy in and reshoot his performance, because the idea was that he glitches. So we had to see some element of him. So we had to basically shoot and then we'd do a pass with the robot, because everything is shot in the robot. We'd have to do a pass with just the set or the location. And then the post guys, do their magic and put it all together. But,
Fantastic.
Advantage of having a repeatable camera, so we have movement. But it also gave us the advantage of shooting the whole sequence, programming the whole thing as one sequence, and then breaking it up and shooting it as 4 passes, so that we can then add practical effects like squib hits, and so that they don't end up being a post element. So the director, Lee, just really wanted it to be, he basically hates seeing, visual effects, muzzle flash and blood squirts. And then when the post guys put it all together, it looked like one seamless take, because the robot's so accurate that you're able to blend all the shots without any cuts.
Oh, that's really interesting. We got another question for you from a viewer. What's your favorite memory from your time working on the Mission Impossible movies?
I didn't really have a good time on Mission Impossible.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It was okay. It was just, I wasn't there for a long period of time. I was playing a character that gets basically blown up off a bridge in a car. It was just, it was a long time ago, and it was in the days where, stunt coordinators were, quite brutal with stunt performers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you guys on, how it was like for you guys, but, I remember, working as a young stunt guy, you would just constantly get yelled at by stunt coordinators.
Raised.
Sorry?
Same.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry to hear that. It kind of dovetails, though, into something I did want to bring up, a little bit serious. Olivia Jackson, a stunt woman who was seriously injured in the making of Resident Evil, the final chapter. We've been following her story over the years, and she just recently won a judgment, but her legal case is continuing. Do you guys see this as a landmark moment where the industry might be changing, where there might be more safeguards in place to make sure you guys can perform your jobs without suffering debilitating injuries? That's an open question.
Anybody?
It's different. I mean, it's the safety's different around the world, and I think my perspective, when I speak to my stunt guys, and a lot of the Australian stunt guys come to the States and work, and work all over the world, is that because of those subtle differences with the way performers work in Australia and the way stunt coordinators work in Australia, is that we sort of almost have had to baby our stunt performers over the years and pretty much control everything. Where you guys in the States, you tend to specialize more in certain areas, and the stunt coordinator will lean heavier on somebody who's a car specialist, or so you tend to let them do their thing a bit more, where here in Australia we control it a bit more as stunt coordinators, and we think about, it's almost like we don't trust the performers. It's like, so we oversee the whole thing, and we micromanage basically. And anytime I've worked with stunt coordinators, American stunt coordinators, they're like, you do your thing, why are you asking me? You work it out.
Yeah, that does tend to happen with a lot of people, and that's just with our industry here in the States, that so many people, there are people that are running shows that that are not qualified to run shows. And they bring in those specialty people to take care of what they need to be taken care of. From my aspect, I look at, I mean, safety is huge for me, and over the years, I've been in this business for over 30 years, and so I've done a lot of performance-wise, and I feel like I take all my experiences with what I'm doing, and each and every stunt that I'm designing with action with performers, because I want everybody to go home safe. I want everybody to go home to their families. I don't want anybody going home hurt. And it's very important to me. You work for me, Jen, you've worked for me, so you can see I'm not over safe, but I try to be very safe with everything that I involve myself in, and every aspect of what we're designing. Like, if I don't know something, then I don't want to do it. I want to be able to be in charge and know what I'm doing, and know that I'm in charge of the safety of everybody that's performing in that sequence.
That's what I loved about cover coordinating for you on a certain show a couple years ago, because if you remember, some of the production tried to play good parent, bad parent, or whatever, and tell me, no, Hito does this. And I was like, I don't think so. And you remember I called you were directing on the other unit, but I was like, yeah, I would have problems with this, and I'm pretty sure you would too. And you were wonderful. You're like, of course I wouldn't do that. Don't let them do that.
Well, but you touched on a good point, Jen, is that a lot of stunt coordinators are production friendly, and we find a lot of coordinators that won't stand up to a director and won't stand up to a production and say, no, this isn't safe, or no, I'm not going to save you money. This is the way it has to be done safely. And they end up cutting corners, and then we end up with injuries, we end up with deaths, and it's unnecessary. And that's one of the things that Hito's really good about, is being very detail oriented and making sure that everybody is on the same page, from, where the crew is supposed to be placed, and the timing of the camera in Olivia Jackson's case, and the DP and every single person knows what is going on, and not a single change is made without going through him first, because he establishes that early on a set.
Yep.
So that those little mistakes where it's a minute second of a timing doesn't happen, and then injuries don't occur.
It's really interesting to hear all that goes into this, and I'm really glad, Hiro, that there are people like you really putting safety first. It's important. I don't think any of us want our entertainment to come at the cost of someone's life or livelihood, or cause great harm. Something else I wanted to throw out to the group as a whole. I seem to hear some momentum in recent years about the Academy Awards honoring stunt performers for their work. Do you feel like you guys have been excluded from the Academy Awards from the Oscars, and would you like to see more representation?
Oh. It's a curse here in Australia.
Yeah.
So everyone I know who has won an award, one was in special effects and one in sound. The sound guy said that it took him about 2 years to get a job after.
No.
Then the special.
Why is that, do you think?
I think people, I mean, here in Australia in particular, people sort of look at it and go, oh, he'd be too expensive now, or, it's just, maybe it's just tall poppy syndrome. But it's almost a curse, and the special effect guy doesn't work in the industry anymore, can't get a job to save his life.
Oh, wow.
That's so
That's
bad.
sad.
Didn't even think about those downsides of fame.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I'm a little bit on both sides of it. I mean, I appreciate, lately I've been seeing a lot of things where people are doing different behind the scenes and learning about all departments, because it takes so many people in so many different departments to make something happen on screen. So it's interesting to kind of see that and to get the recognition from it. But then on the flip side of it, our job is, as a stunt double, for example, if we are doing some big stunt and doing something crazy on a film and everybody thinks that it was the actor that did it, then we did our job right. We're behind the scenes of it, and that's our job, and it's always been that way.
The unknown stuntman. That's what it was when we got into it. Yeah, before social media.
Yeah. social media has changed this industry drastically, and people have like the way they have to post every single thing that they're doing, and they're on set views and they're on this and that, whatever. But it's yeah. So I mean, I like the recognition of certain things, and I appreciate all these different places that are showing the behind the scenes work that everybody does, not just for stunts, but for all departments. But Oscars, I don't know. I'm on both sides of the fence with that because I don't know.
I do think there's some amazing action designers that have absolutely molded what we go to pay money to go see at the theaters. And in general, especially, you know, like Jack Gill's really been driving that movement, and there's a lot of our just,
because Jack Gill knows he would have won one by now.
Yeah, exactly.
A bunch of them. He should have got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
For that reason, I'm all for it. And I know, you know, the argument is if all these other departments are getting them, and here's a department that's literally life and limb, perhaps that should be. But it's the same thing. It's the unknown stuntman versus recognition for at least the action designer.
That's why I think that's where you hit it right, is just, you know, giving someone as an action designer, when they design an incredible action sequence on something, it should be recognized for sure.
Well, I mean, you have an Emmy back there for designing action in a television show. So yes, I think they deserve it.
Yeah.
In designing action for, and here's the thing too,
the Academy is taking in more stunt coordinators. I mean, it is growing, so that's
you're absolutely right. And generally the action that's designed in these films that would be nominated for an Academy Award is big action. And I'm sorry, but if somebody can sit in a trailer and apply makeup or do somebody's hair and be nominated for Academy Award, then the people who are out there risking their lives and the person keeping them safe and designing all of that, which a lot of the times is the bulk of what we're seeing on screen, definitely deserves the recognition.
Yeah, you made such an amazing point though about how you know, no one gets into stunt work to have their own face on the screen. Very few exceptions. So yeah, it's, you know, kind of a very, searching for the right words. It's selfless in a lot of ways.
Can I tag on a question to that?
What's that, Jennifer?
I said I would tag on a question to my peers here about that too. Is my very intelligent and awesome husband has made the point too that he wonders if we were to get recognition for action designers, if it may increase the risk that is put into films as people want to compete, because we're a very competitive group of people.
Very good point.
That is a really good point.
I don't know. We have good discussions about it at home, but I'm like, it's legitimate to think about too.
Yeah,
well,
would that inspire people to push boundaries too far?
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is a lot of the action we see is enhanced by visual effects.
Right.
So what you're seeing on the screen may not be as practically stunning a stunt as it is once we see the final edit, because of the enhanced visual effects. So sometimes what you are seeing is not always what went into actually performing it practically as a stunt.
Well, Jennifer, I'm glad you mentioned the safety aspect of it. I think that should be a reoccurring theme. One thing I feel like I'd be almost remiss if I didn't get into, for people who are tuning in, who are checking this out, what's a safe way to pursue a career in stunt work? Because we know the not safe ways, you know, all the jackass wannabes on YouTube. If somebody genuinely wants to make this a career, how would they do so in a way that's safe and responsible?
In Atlanta, I tend to tell people to call their local gymnastics studios, especially. And there's actually some good parkour studios as well here, where they'll have workout nights where stunt people go, and sometimes there's, you know, like a $5 or $10 fee, but it's open gym basically. And that way they can at least meet people that might be up and coming as well and discuss it more. But I mean, we all, I'm sure, have people come up on sets all the time saying, hey, I want to do it. And I never want to discourage someone's dream, because I'm so grateful for the opportunities I've had. But one of the first things I tend to ask men and women that say it, I'm like, are you okay having teeth knocked out, your nose broken? I mean, I've got scars over my eyes. I've actually got a messed up eye right now. You know, are you okay having your face mangled? Because 9 times out of 10, the person asking goes, oh, well, no, because I'm also an actor and a model and I want to be a singer, and I wish them well in all those endeavors. But if doing stunts was entirely safe, the actors would be doing them. So while we do everything we can to mitigate risk, both as coordinators and performers, stuff happens. It is stunts. You know, you get punched in the face sometimes by an actor, sometimes by another stunt person. Stuff happens. So that's usually the way. Since we don't have a lot of schools, that there are a few schools, but not a lot. That's the way I tend to send people most of the time. What about in Australia?
It's really different in Australia. We've got a grading process. So based off the British system. So it takes you about 5 years before you can step on set. So the grading procedure covers like 5 categories. You need to go and fulfill them. You need to be proficient at it. And then you sit in front of a board and you go through a process. You become a SAP, which is a trainee. And you have to be a trainee for 2 years. And then you become a stunt performer. And then you can't become a stunt coordinator for a minimum of 10 years. And then you need to fulfill certain categories. You have to have, 2,000 days on set. So it's quite structured here. So it's very hard for someone to step on set and just do stunts because they're good at something. Now, there are exceptions. If you're exceptionally good at motorcycle stunts. So I tend to go outside the system a little bit sometimes if I think somebody's exceptional at what they do. But that's my call and, as a stunt coordinator. But generally, you have to go through the whole process.
That's very interesting. Hiro and Janelle, what would you say are some safe ways that someone interested in pursuing a career in stunts could test the waters?
I always ask somebody, well, what's your special skill? Because most of the successful stunt performers have a gymnastics background, have a martial arts background. They were divers, they were motocross riders, they did horseback, and then eventually like branched out. Because the people that, one day on set say, oh, that looks cool, that's what I want to do. Generally, it's a lot of body awareness, it's a lot of air awareness, it's a lot of tenacity that you don't just wake up one day and have. It comes from lifelong training in a specific skill set. So I always ask people like, okay, well, what's your skill set? Well, nothing. Well, are you athletic? Do you play sports? Well, no, I've never played a sport in my life. Okay, then you might not be cut out for being a stunt performer. It's incredibly physical. If somebody says, oh, well, I was a collegiate athlete, or I was a diver, or I'm a gymnast. And it's like, okay, well, then you might have, I had a high school girl contact me on Instagram the other day, and she's a cheerleader stunter. So she gets, thrown in the air and was asking me questions. I tend to send people to the Stunt Performers Academy in Los Angeles and guide them that way. It's an incredible program, which is really in depth. And it's Bonsai Vitale, who gives people, it's a real like intensive of what it's like to be a stunt performer. And if you can't make it through that course without being discouraged or, quitting halfway through, then it's another good test of maybe not being cut out for the business, because
on
it's
and
really
off
hard
set work as well. I mean, he teaches old school ways of how a performer should act off set.
Etiquette is huge.
Set etiquette is huge, and that's a huge problem that I see in the States right now with a lot of the new performers that are coming out. When people come to me and ask about stunts, I usually send them her way or somebody else's way, because I don't want to talk to them about it.
Well, I know that you were inspired to pursue stunts at a very early age. Yeah,
I was. I got my SAG card when I was 12 years old, doing a national commercial, and my father trained a stunt woman. Her name was Cheryl Wheeler, and she was married to Shane Dixon, who has passed away now. But he was part of Stunts Unlimited, and I'd gone to a few films and watched some stunt rehearsals at a very young age, and saw all these amazing stunt people and saw what they were doing. And it was like, that was all I wanted to do. Eventually I did become a member of Stunts Unlimited. I'm no longer a member of that group, but it was like a huge part of my career, just becoming a member of that group, and then pursuing, that's all I ever wanted to do since I was
a little off topic, Hiro and Janelle, but how did you guys meet? I'm always curious on how couples meet. You know.
She was a last minute. She was a last minute replacement on a commercial. I was doing a Tekken video game for Spike Television. Was it Spike Television? Yeah, Spike TV.
Spike TV Awards.
Spike TV Awards. It was a Tekken 2 video game. I had to replace one of the characters on there last minute, and we had like a whole week of rehearsal, and I'm trying to scrounge somebody up at the last minute, and
I was brand new.
Brand new. A few people gave me her name. I saw her reel and I watched. I was like, yeah, it's good. But everybody, you can have a really good reel, and then they show up on set and they're terrible. But anyways, few people that I trusted gave me a good reference for her. She came in and worked for me on this commercial, and
obviously you were quite impressed.
I was very
I killed it. Yeah.
Fantastic. You both worked on True Blood. Were you guys working at the same time?
Yeah, he actually right after that video game, he hired me on True Blood.
Oh,
I think he might have had some ulterior motives as well.
Really?
No, but True Blood was fun.
Well, fantastic. This has been such a fun panel. And I know that we're reaching the end of our time, but something that came in from a viewer and a great question for all of you. Who do you think are the greatest action film directors, and who would you love the opportunity to work with? And we'll just go down the line. So Hiro.
Oh, God. That was me.
Everyone else gets to think about it. You're on the spot.
Yeah, one of my all-time favorite action directors was John Woo, and I got to work with him already.
Oh, wow. What was that like?
It was incredible. I mean, we did Wind Talkers. I was on Wind Talkers with him for a very long time, but I'm a huge fan of his. Gosh, I don't know. There's tons of people, but
Too many.
there's so many.
Well, Jennifer, who are your favorite action movie directors, and who would you love the opportunity to work with?
I'm not going to answer the first part of that, and I'll answer the second part by saying I enjoy working with new people all the time because there's such different approaches to collaborating. So that's cool.
Janelle?
I would love to work for Catherine Bigelow, who's actually the ex of Jim Cameron, who I got to work with, and I actually got to meet Catherine on a set. And I just she does really great action, and there aren't a lot of women who direct good action, and hers are very diverse, you know, from Zero Dark 30 to Detroit and Hurt Locker. I feel like she really has that nice touch when it comes to directing action. She's one I'd really love to work with.
Oh, fantastic. How about you, Harry?
Well, we don't get to work with such amazing people here in Australia so often, but I think Wu Ping is probably one of the guys that I've worked with before, and I think I just find really fascinating on the style of how they, you know, and that's sort of what I've sort of modeled around what I do and try to make it a really organic sort of process. It looks crude, but works really effectively.
Fantastic. We're pretty much out of time, but I just wanted to thank you guys again. I probably should have done this first, but as a way of kind of saying goodbye, just like to ask each of you to tell our viewers your specialty and tell our viewers what you're working on next. And Harry, we'll start with you this time.
Oh, specialty.
Yeah, what's your specialty?
Well, I started as fighting. Fighting was my specialty, and then I sort of went away from that. I got sort of boxed into vehicle stunts, cars. So, the last sort of decade, I've been working on, lots of car commercials and lots of car action, basically. But sort of now I'm going back towards the fight stuff. So with all the motion control, I find that really fascinating, finding new ways of filming fight stunts.
Well, fantastic. We love what you've done, and we can't wait to see what you do next. So thanks again for being part of this panel. Jennifer, tell us your specialty and tell us what you're currently working on when the pandemic's over.
Yeah, exactly right. I got into stunts mostly because of scuba and freediving as a background, and starting really young. But especially 20 years ago plus, you need to be as versatile as possible. So a lot of wire work, a lot of fights, but also transferring into a lot of vehicular action. So I got back from Israel recently from doing a car driving sequence in Tel Aviv, which was very educational. And then I've done driving and some fighting coming up in Wonder Woman 2 and the new Black Widow movie when it gets released.
Nice. Exciting. Can't wait to see those. And thank you so much for being a part of this panel.
Thank you.
Janelle, your specialty and what are you working on next?
My specialty is fights and wire work. I also get called to do a lot of high work, which is jumping off of cliffs and bridges and that sort of thing. And right now, when we go back, I'll be working with Hiro on Stranger Things season 4.
Nice.
Fantastic. So that was a bit of a spoiler for Hiro, what you're working on next, but tell us about your specialty and some other projects you've got going on.
I started in this business because of gymnastics, martial arts, and I raced motocross as a kid. And lately, most stuff I've been doing a lot of vehicular action as well. I'm kind of tried, as Jen said, just when I started in this business, you wanted to try to get as diverse as you can. So I trained in a lot of different things. But my strongest background right now, I guess, would be fighting. Cobra Kai. We've done all 3 seasons of that.
His specialty is everything.
Yeah,
Nice.
his specialty is everything.
His specialty is everything. When Hiro gets called to do a show, there isn't a specialist that comes in to do anything. He does all of it.
Well,
fantastic.
We get out of this pandemic, we'll be headed back to doing Stranger Things season 4.
Fantastic. I know we're all really, really excited about that.
It's going to be epic.
Nice, nice. So just a final thought, any truth to the stereotype that stunt people are all adrenaline junkies?
So true.
True? Hiro says it's true?
But here's the thing, when we're not on set,
We're farming.
We just want to chill.
We just want to chill and do nothing. I don't know. It's different.
I mean, look at Harry. Harry embodies it perfectly. There you go.
He's as chill as they get.
I know. I can't imagine you've ever experienced adrenaline, Harry. You're just so chill down there.
Well, let's put it this way. Most of my friends get the shits with me when I drive because they say I drive like an old lady.
Oh,
When we're on the road.
wow.
Love it.
Well, this was such a fun time. I want to thank all of the panelists for giving their time, for sharing their stories and the experience. I want to thank our partners at Impact 24 for being the impetus for Dread Central to put this together. And of course, my team at Dread Central, who I couldn't do this without. This entire live stream will be uploaded to our YouTube channel in the not too distant future. And we're going to be doing more of these dissecting horror panels in the future. Tonight was an absolute blast. Thank you again for participating, and thanks to all of you for tuning in.